Learn how to make no-knead whole grain spelt sourdough bread like a master. I've made this recipe as easy and quick as possible. In fact, the bread will be ready in just 8.5 hours. You will not need any of the fancy equipment that many recipes call for, like a proofing basket or a Dutch oven, which can be quite an investment. Let's start with feeding the sourdough mother or starter. I have here 4 tablespoons of starter. Next, add 4 tablespoons of whole grain spelt flour and 4 tablespoons of filtered water. Then mix it gently together, cover with lid and leave at room temperature until it has doubled in size. It can take just a few hours or even 12 hours, depending on the room temperature. Finally, refrigerate until you make your next sourdough bread. By the way, use the leftover starter to make sourdough pancakes, for example. So let's make the bread. Add to a large bowl water, Himalayan salt, preferred syrup, I have date syrup here, and sourdough starter. Now mix it all together. Next, pour in whole grain spelt flour and mix until everything is well incorporated. Don't worry, the dough is supposed to be quite soggy. Cover the bowl with a tea towel or stick it into a plastic bag like I do and let it rest for an hour. When the hour is up, flour the dough with fine spelt flour and using silicone spatula, separate the dough from the edges of the bowl. Flour your hands as well and do the first stretch and fold, like that, on one direction and then on the other. Then cover the bowl again and let the dough rest for 15 minutes, after which do the second stretch and fold. Cover the bowl once again and let it rest for another 15 minutes before you perform the third and final stretch and fold. I prefer fine flour for dusting because it's, well, simply dustier and you'll need less. After the final stretch and fold, cover the bowl and place it into warm 35 degrees Celsius oven for fermentation. It will have doubled in size in just 4 to 5 hours. Now, you can also leave it for longer if you want your bread to taste tangier. I find that 4 to 5 hours is just perfect. In case your oven doesn't allow such low temperatures and you leave the dough at room temperature, it will take up to 12 hours for the dough to double in size. Look how much it's risen. Now, have a bread pan lined with parchment paper ready when you start dusting the batter. Use spatula to separate the dough from the edges of the bowl and flour your hands. Flip the dough over so that the floured surface faces down and, if necessary, lightly dust the other side as well. Fold the sides of the dough up and pinch together the top by kind of drawing it up. You can do this in the bowl or alternatively transfer the dough onto a floured wooden chopping board and do the folding and pinching there. Then gently transfer the dough into bread pan, cover and put back into warm oven for final 1 hour proofing. And this is how much it's risen. Beautiful! To bake the bread, first remove the plastic, obviously. Put it back into oven and heat it up to 190 degrees Celsius. Make sure you don't turn on the fast heat function. At the same time, set the timer to 1 hour and 10 minutes and let the bread bake. And yes, you put the bread in, turn on the oven and set the timer simultaneously. When there are 5 minutes left, open the oven door and knock on the crust. The bread is done if the sound is hollow. If not, bake for another 5 to 10 minutes. But before you can dig in, remove the bread from oven and place it onto any heat-resistant surface. I'm using a cork hot pad. Take 2 sheets of kitchen paper and fold them once so that you have 4 layers of paper and place it onto a wooden board. Lift the bread out of the pan by grabbing the edges of parchment paper and place it onto the folded kitchen paper. Let it cool for at least an hour before cutting. I know it's hard, but you can do it. Eat as is or spread with preferred nut or seed butter. If you have a family, you'll easily eat no less than half of a fresh bread then and there. At least this is my own personal experience. Or make a sandwich with my vegan egg salad, some red cabbage or sauerkraut or kimchi, and some greens, parsley in this case, and top it off with tangy garlic sprouts. And voila! If you do manage to have leftovers, slice the bread up and freeze the slices. Heat them up in a microwave for soft result or in oven or toaster for crunchy slices.